So we're going to start with this section. I call it upgrading marketing operations using advanced attribution. All right, so this goes to, I think the question that Savita was asking last time. You have all these multipliers. We ran a test, or we used MMM to calculate a multiplier for in Facebook or Yelp or whatever it is that we are buying. Now, but I ran that test last month. Now, how do I report, all my media 2 months before that, or 8 months before that last year? And how do I kind of think about this multiplier? It's just one number. There's so much seasonality in my business. Can I just like latch onto that number and just be okay with it? Well, the answer is yes, but you set up your multipliers in what we call time-bounded fashion, okay? So do you think of imagine this is Facebook, okay? Imagine this Facebook prospecting represents all the broad audience work you're doing, maybe interest targeting work you're doing, and all of that stuff. Let's call that as this particular Facebook tactic. And let's say you start with the benchmark. You do the triangulation analysis based on what you learn in class, and you say, I'm going to apply 75% benchmark. Okay, so my multiplier is 75%. Okay, and then you say, but I'm not really happy with it. I'm going to actually run a test. So you go set up a geo test at some point. It comes back with 40%. You're like, you know what? I'm going to calibrate this down to 40%. You can run another lift test and based on seasonality and find out that, well, in this season, I believe that it's higher, right? So essentially, of course, this is kind of a classroom example. Obviously, it's a lot more continuous. But you can set up essentially what we call seasonal multipliers, okay? And time-bounded multipliers. And each channel will have essentially a time-bounded multiplier series, a longitudinal series of multipliers. Typically, it's a new area, so the best practices are still pretty, I would say, raw. But what we advise brands when we work with them is to say have quarterly multipliers. At least once a quarter, you have different multipliers, so you can kind of calibrate them. And there's a lot of practice on how to calibrate multipliers using both MMMs and testing and whatnot. But just as a mental model for how often you want to change multipliers, quarterly is a good sort of benchmark to have. Okay. Now, this you save into a table, some sort of a database table that you have, and it represents what the multipliers are on a quarterly basis. Okay. Now, this also allows you to handle if your last click attribution is getting worse on a regular basis because of cookie deprecation, because of iOS restrictions and variety of other things, you can constantly adjust your multipliers in a way that represents true impact of your media against consumers. Okay, that's kind of, it also kind of protects. It's a future-proofed way for you to manage true causal impact of media in a world where signals are changing on you. How do you do that? Well, this is how you do it. You can create a longitudinal series of multipliers that helps you calibrate the impact of media against daily last click reporting. Okay, so this is time-bounded multipliers. And then you can run studies. Either you can run an MMM or lift tests or geo tests to constantly keep calibrating the multipliers you're finding in market. And that way you can always, you can do it as little as much as you want. And then when you take your last click reporting, imagine this is Facebook reporting. This is what's coming out of Ads Manager, let's say daily reporting. And this is kind of how it looks like from a daily last click orders perspective. Now you can bounce the two together, last click orders times multipliers to get essentially what we call advanced attributed conversions. Okay. So now self-attributed conversions times multiplier, advanced attributed conversions. Now this series here now represents the causal impact of Facebook to your business on a daily basis that allows you to now use this data to manage your budgets, manage your bids, your investment in channels on a regular basis, like you would do anyway on an ongoing basis. Okay. Now this represents the incremental impact as estimated by advanced attribution. Okay. Now, how do you bring this all together? Now we talked about multipliers, we talked about last click reporting. Sometimes it's UTM, sometimes it's platform. How do I think about where I want to land in a place where this can be operational for brands? How do I turn all of advanced attribution to be an operational currency that you can use for running your business? Well, this is kind of what we're going to walk through here. Okay. All right. Now, let me actually start here. Actually, it's okay. We'll start here. Okay. This is what's called portfolio reporting. This is the highest level of reporting that you want to see. This is kind of the bird's eye view of the business. Actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me have this take over here. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let me show you something here. That way it's a more, this is the blinded laser away case study data, right? Before I jump into this, let me get kind of like set you up with this particular context, and we'll jump into the actual template itself. Okay. Before we go into the template, there's a word called marketing accounting. So a lot of us practitioners in the space, we constantly like struggle with the fact that there is no standard accounting practices for marketing, right? There is no gap accounting for marketing, right? It's kind of like if you go into Jennifer's business and if you see how she's reporting her business, and if you go into Ellen's business and how she's reporting, they're actually quite different. You'll find that they don't use the same terms, even though they're all very methodical and thought through. Jennifer may report her search in one way and her direct mail in one way, new and returning customers in one way, whereas Ellen may do it differently, and somebody else may do it completely differently. And so everybody has sort of like their own standards that are very organically developed for the specific organizational local sort of setups that they have, right? Therefore, it becomes pretty challenging to be able to look at all of these concepts you want to bring and apply to business in a uniform way, because we don't have the standards. At M Squared, we're building those standards. And I'm going to walk you through what we call 3P&L framework for accounting. But before I do that, I just want to set some awareness of what we call marketing accounting. Okay. One is taxonomy. Now, how you roll up channels and report channels, we talked about this in the first class, how you group channels into Facebook prospecting, Facebook retargeting, branded search, non-branded search, prospecting, retention, right? Those kind of things around grouping things has a lot to do with how clean you can report the impact of media and marketing on business outcomes, okay? Now, when you roll up, for example, SEO and PPC together as search, it's kind of mushing to very different types of channels. One is an earned channel, one's a paid channel. You don't want to do that. You want to roll them up separately and say, well, this is organic traffic, that is direct load and SEO, and this is paid traffic, what we pay for with respect to Google search, branded and non-branded keywords. You want to report them separately as an example, right? Now, when you do that in a very methodical, thought through way, you get to the point where you can now report channels in a way that is aligned to how it's creating impact, and also how finance would look at the numbers to understand how to account for what marketing's investments and return on marketing's investment on business outcomes, right? And so it allows you to draw a straight line between marketing and finance so that the metrics you use to make decisions and the metrics the board and the exec team will use to figure out how much to invest in marketing are the same. You're not looking at clicks and likes and video views, and they're looking at essentially, gross margin and profit metrics. You have to translate these metrics into P&L metrics. Now, everybody is using the same metrics to understand, interpret, make decisions. It becomes much easier to have a conversation and make decisions. Okay, so that's taxonomy. Attribution windows. There's a big conversation in the industry around what is the right attribution window. Every brand I go to has this big sort of cathartic conversation about should the attribution window be 7 days or 1 day or 24 hours or 6 hours or whatnot. It just turns out that there is no one attribution window that's ideal. So we're going to talk about how we'll address that in a framework in this particular class. And then there is a notion of media window reporting versus conversion window reporting. Let me pause right there. The Yelp folks, maybe Karan, you can speak to it. What is Yelp's standard reporting? Is it media window reporting or conversion window reporting?
Conversion window reporting with the 7-day view and 28-day click.
Okay, let's unpack this for a little bit. Who can challenge Karan on this, on whether what he's saying is right or wrong? Maybe Kadisha, are you in class? Okay, so let's say
I was waiting to ask. I'm waiting to hear the challenge.
Okay, so imagine this is me, okay, and I'm on Yelp, okay, and this is let's say, for example, Jennifer's site, Jennifer's swimwear site. I'm looking for I'm looking for swimsuits for my daughters. One of my daughters is a swim champ. So I bought something here. Okay. Now I saw an ad here on Yelp, right? Now this is, let's say, day 1. Okay. Let's say this is day 2. Okay. Now when you go pull reporting from Yelp on day 1, Yelp's reporting is going to say I had 1 impression and how many conversions. So there's a 0 conversions here. Is the conversion going to get reported here or here? Karan, where will this conversion get reported?
What was the stuff you wrote on the upper right? The
Okay.
TNC?
Let me write it again here. Give me one.
That's an I for impression.
So imagine this is day 1, day 2.
Right.
Okay. This is impressions. This is conversions. Okay. So in the example I showed you, this is, let's say, day 1. This is day 2. And this is, let's say, Jennifer's site, right? Jennifer's, I think, Jolin, right? So this is Jolin's site, right? And let's say I convert here. But I saw the impression here. Clearly, the impression will get reported here. I got 1 impression. Okay. Will the conversion get reported here or here in Yelp?
If the conversion was, it's based on what it was attributed to.
That's right. That's right. That is called media window reporting. What you just said, Karan, is called media window reporting. So this conversion will get attached to this impression, will get reported here. Okay. That's called, this particular approach is called media window reporting, which is what the standard for most platforms. If you pull reporting from Ads Manager or AdWords or Yelp, or this is the media standard. Okay. But if you go pull reporting from DoubleClick DCM, Campaign Manager, for example, I think now they have both options. The default used to be that they'll report the conversion here. Okay, Google Analytics will report the conversion here. If you go pull data from Google Analytics, they'll say, well, conversion happened here, so I'm going to report it here, right? So this is called conversion window reporting. Okay, depending on which platforms you're looking at, they'll have different defaults. Media platforms will default typically to media window reporting, and site-side platforms like Google Analytics and AppsFlyer, all the app attribution platforms. Actually, app attribution platforms now they don't, but they used to report it on the conversion window, right? This is a big area of confusion. A lot of times you'll be like, okay, what am I looking at? Why are the numbers different? Is my numbers wrong? Is the data quality broken? It's really a function of how conversions are accounted for in how they report. Okay. So, okay, we covered a lot of this. Okay. Now, the most latest thinking in this, there's a gentleman named a CMO named Dave Lokes who comes to class. I learned this from him, where he would call every customer segment, new customers, active customers, as P&Ls. It'd be like, my new customer P&L, the ROAS is blah, and my profitability is blue, whereas my existing customer is, so and so, and I'm trying to put them together and figure out, as a business, am I profitable or not? Am I building a flywheel or not? In fact, there is a post read that I posted as part of the curriculum where his lecture is cut there. He very elegantly describes how he thinks of customer segments as P&Ls. Okay, so I took inspiration from that, and we kind of like started thinking about customer segments as P&Ls. Before I get here, let me show you one more.